Imagine for a minute, you're a doctor. In half an hour, you're going to be doing a life-saving operation on a patient. You're about to dial into the computers to get some files down to get ready. Or you're a factory manager, having to make some changes to your factory line just before you have to go live with a new run of toys ready for Christmas. Or maybe you work in HR or accounts, and it's coming to the end of the month, right? And you've got to run payroll, and you've got to push that out, because otherwise you're going to get it in the neck. Or you're an IR team member, and it's Friday afternoon. You got the weekend off, you're not on call. And then you see something like this. Now, if you're that user, factory manager, doctor, what? Well, did I click on something? Was that me? I don't know. What do I do now? I know. I'll just switch off, switch on, right? That's what I have to do. Yeah? Okay, cool, that'll work. Oh. No, it didn't. What do I do now? I don't know. Who am I going to call? Anyone? Come on, can somebody fix this now, please? I literally have to get payroll out. Shit, what's going to happen? Uh-oh, the payroll. Oh, you're working in IR, right? Ooh, ransomware. Juicy one, this could be fun. Yeah? Yeah, hang on, you as well? And you? Yeah, hang on. No, can you stop shouting, please? Yeah, I'm trying my best. This is going to be a big one. Okay. But it's bigger than this, right? That payroll might not go out, people might not get paid. That doctor might be doing a life-saving operation and that's impacted. Kids might not get presents for Christmas. And that's what I want to talk about today. My name's Adrian Taylor. I work for an organisation called Unit 42 at the moment. Oh, somebody else work there? Yeah, there we go. All you've heard. We do threat intelligence, incident response, and a number of other things, but my passion is talking about the human side of cybersecurity outside of culture and awareness, about the impacts of it. I do coaching with Lego and empathy hacking and trying to get in the minds of our users and our teams and our board. So that's what this conversation is about. It's a bit of a personal passion for me. And I want to be talking about the human side of ransomware and the impacts it has on the organizations and those around them. You're probably familiar with people talking about the cost of a data breach, the cost of ransomware, right? What do you feel when you see these stats? Worried. Do you? Anything? Somebody was just like, me? Yeah.
Probably insured. It's all big companies.
You don't really feel much about that number, do you? I don't. I see it come up, but I'm like, well, I'm not going to be paying that as an individual. I work in cybersecurity. I don't feel much about that. So I want to explore a little bit about what people are feeling and what's going on around incidents and why it matters and what you can do about it and why it's important. That's what today's talk's going to be about. I'm just realizing it didn't start my timer, so no idea. All right. So when we see these stats, typically people are talking about things like regulatory fines, loss of productivity, profits, reputation damage, customers being lost. They don't really talk about what's happening to the humans behind that. Your users, your customers, your IR team. Okay, so I want to explore a little bit about that today. So what we see when we're with ransomware, a number of different trends, right? It's not all just about encryption. A lot of customers and organizations do get hit with encryption, but there's a hell of a lot of data theft and the impacts of data being stolen. We also see sometimes DDoS, and we're also seeing a worrying number of harassment cases that are coming up. Now, this quadruple extortion method is all a way of the threat actors making money. It's a business, right? It's all a way of extorting money, and most of that's through fear and shock. They're evoking emotions that are going to drive action. I'm going to show you a couple of examples, but I did say it's a personal talk, but just going to slide in a little plug for the Unit 42 team and their threat intel reports and everything around this, right? They really are golden. I was reading them before I joined the organisation. Has anybody else been using Unit 42 threat intel in their SOC or anything? Okay, a few hands around there. It's well worth a read. But let me bring it home to these impacts. Did anyone hear about this case in Finland a couple of years ago? Yeah. Every time I update this slide and write it, just makes me kind of a bit sick on here, right? So, Vastaamo in Finland, 25 psychotherapy centres. About 30, they had 36,000 customers, 400 employees, and that data was compromised by a threat actor, stolen. Now, that threat actor had patient records, the notes that were stored about people's therapy appointments, things that they shared about adultery, about suicidal thoughts, about criminal intent thoughts, and these were things that were held in utmost confidence, trust, and safety, and then they started to be published. Imagine how that would have felt if you woke up and saw the news and you were one of these people that had had therapy there. Are you going to be one of them or not, right? That's going to run through you. What's weird, well, pretty sick on this one, but this threat actor then started to contact the individuals whose medical records were stolen and ask them for money and personally extort them and ask them for, what was it? It was about 200 euros or 500 if they didn't pay in time. So not only were people hearing about this threat from the outside, then these criminals, or criminal was making contact and getting in touch with them as an individual and saying, I've got your data. Imagine what goes through the mind of that individual at that point and that organisation. This particular organisation ended up going under. It lost the public trust. It lost the patient trust. They tried to sell. They tried to get bought out. The CEO ended up being fined and he got a sentence. The company went into liquidation. Thankfully, the hacker was jailed. 21,000 counts of extortion. He got 6 years, 3 months. Is this mic okay? I'm getting some feedback. Is it coming out clear? All right. Thank you. So this starts to paint a picture of users being impacted by ransomware, and it not just about that big number, right? There's an impact that's out there. And if we look at it, it's a bit like an onion layer, right? Normally we're looking about the impact here, about the organization, the users, the IR team, the IT team. But if you start to build out from that a little bit, then you're looking at the users of your services within your organization, or maybe your customers and those that are interfacing with your organization. And if you look even bigger, you start to look at society and economy and the public trust. So I'm going to pick away at these onion layers today. So if you look at society and economy first, right, let's start from the outside in. Ransomware, if it starts to undermine public trust, if things like the health service and police start to get hit by incidents, what are we going to do as users of those services? We're going to not trust that they're looking after us. If they're not looking after our data, what else might they not be looking after? So we lose trust of things like government services, of the police perhaps, of people holding our data. We become more paranoid. It starts on another way of normalizing it. If we're seeing it in the news the whole time, it normalizes cybercrime and we start to forget to do the basics. So we just, it's only data, isn't it? And we ourselves may change our risk tolerance. So these little things to start pondering. But from an economic point of view, it can have huge impacts on people outside of the incident itself. The blast radius might be massive. So, for example, DP Worldwide or World Hack back, I think it's, can't see down there, it was about 3 years ago, This company, shipping company, looked after about 40% of the goods going in and out of Australia, right? Which, as an island, that's quite a significant amount of control. They had to shut off the internet for a number of days. Okay, there was a lack of service that prevented goods coming in and out of the country completely. There were probably companies that were in Australia and outside relying on those goods for trade, probably losing money, losing faith in that company, but also broader. So you start to bring that down and look at the supply chain and that impact of goods not being able to move around. You start thinking about what would happen if ROT was impacted and then we couldn't get water, or the fuel lines could get impacted. That then starts to have an impact on us as individuals. But as us as IT professionals, right, unless you're working in the public sector, which probably some of us are here, there's not a lot we can do about that other than hope and have faith. But we start moving in a little bit more. We start to look at those indirect impacts on the blast radius of the things that we probably can impact, our customers, our users. Start thinking a little bit about that. So the impacts of ransomware then start to look at things like actual physical harm. So if you look at public health, you look at patients that are in hospitals, you look at energy over winter, right? If we suddenly start to have impact on our energy supply over winter, it's bad enough with many people living below the poverty line trying to heat their houses. What if then power supply started to go down or be limited at that point, or oil and gas? But it goes beyond that because benefit systems can be disrupted. There's also some cases where housing price fluctuations happen as a knock-on impact of ransomware. These economic harms are real. And small business disruption, just an example like Rackspace a few years back, they got hit. There was an Exchange vulnerability they got nailed by, and then a whole bunch of their email accounts got stolen, PST files, and they had to shut down services for ages. And those businesses would have been impacted. That was a hosting service. That was probably hosting a hairdresser, a building company, or a lawyer, or something like that. That would have been wiping out their ability to trade. So when you look at the headlines, you see something like, oh, Rackspace is being hit, oh, big company. Just think of the customers that might be impacted within that company and what it means to them. It means anxiety, it means stress, it means probably a lack of control. These people can't do much about it. And that's why it's so important for us within the cybersecurity teams to be doing what we can to limit this blast radius and have empathy of the people that are impacted. So when we're sending out media comms, when we're starting to work with controlling that narrative, we've got them in mind a little bit and thinking, actually, it's not just us trying to save our bacon and our share prices, it's us thinking about the people that are impacted by this incident. And what we put out publicly really will drive or lose trust of those around. And that blast radius is huge, but it can be controlled with proper planning. So let's come back in. As we get nearer to what we can do in our incident response team, right? So think of the financial harm. I mentioned about like payroll systems being impacted, disruptions of services that might lose you customers. And you think, oh yeah, cost of crime, financial loss, profit loss. It does cause known names to just disappear over time, like Travelex, massive breach a couple of years back, right? Big name. You'd see them in places like Sainsbury's and others and their offices in airports. They had a huge breach. They were connected to a number of other networks where they were placed that lost trust in them. Whilst it wasn't directly attributed to the ransomware, that loss of confidence led to buyout not happening, and they ended up closing down. Codespaces back in 2014, I know that's quite a long time ago, but there's an example of a company who had DDoS. They started to try and restore and recover. Nice little example of like doing incident response right. If you're not sure you've got rid of the threat actor, don't start trying to restore from backup and other things, because that threat actor saw that and then just deleted. They've got access to their Amazon account. It just started to delete all their data and backups and everything. And that just was like, oh, well, basically just wiped out that company. So they don't exist, literally. So this does have an impact, and it has an impact on those 1,300 employees of that company. So when we bring it down to us, let's think about what's going on in our organization. Have we got any incident responders in the house? I know there's 2 in here. Right. Anyone else that's worked in incident response? Anybody else want to admit to being in one of these big, horrible, gnarly incidents? That kind of, okay, a few of you, either as a user or a defender, right? It's great fun, right? For the first couple of seconds, that adrenaline kicks in. Then the phone starts ringing. So this initial week, it's all about trying to gather data, trying to understand what's going on. That first week can be fun. There's a mixture of emotions. Absolute cocktail. It really is, like that cocktail that you make at university. It doesn't look pretty by the time you've finished it, right? And it doesn't really taste that nice, but you have to do it anyway. I don't know where that metaphor came from. I mean, at university, it must just have come back to me. So the thing in the first week, right, it's about understanding what's going on. It's about trying to rally the team together. It's about realizing, oh shit, the person that has the key and knows everything that's going on is currently on paternity leave. Or they left, pissed off, and not picking up the phone, right? And they're the one that knows how that system works. Well, we can't even remember who runs that system. Oh shit, we've not got the logs we needed. Well, yes, we have. No, but only 2 days. This happened a week ago. Oh shit. So that's what's happening for us in an incident response team. What about the user? I think it might have been me who clicked that. Yeah, it probably was. I think so. I've got proof in these logs. Yeah, I can see you clicking on that. Well, I brought the whole company down. Excuse me, who else knows about this? Oh, shit. Incident responders, this is awesome. Let's call in the pizza. Yeah, let's get in. War room, up and running. We're in this together, gang. Pizza, yeah. Late nights, 20 hours. I'm on it. We're in it together. Oh, tomorrow as well, yeah. Oh, bloody hell, this is hard, isn't it? IT teams coming in. It's good fun and exhausting. It's scary. It's painful. There's a lot of shame that's coming in there. Should we phone the regulators? Should we not? Oh, hang on. CEO's breathing down your neck. CFO, everybody else. The users are on your back. Cocktail of emotions. A lot of fear. A lot of blame and guilt. Was that me? Did I not patch that server? Somebody going to have a go at me? Oh, I'm the CISO. I've got to get control of this. How many? Yeah. Okay, so all this is happening in the first week and more. People start taking up smoking. People eat a lot of junk food. People are not phoning home. They're busy. Your dog's waiting for you at this point, wondering where on earth you are. There's an impact there as well on your pets. And you. Big impact with all that pizza. So then as it rolls on a little bit more.
More than 15.
More than 15. All right, good. Then you start rolling into a month. It's not as much fun. Actually, let's just go back one more. That initial week. You're working with a threat actor, right? I forgot to mention that. If you've got an incident response team that know what they're doing, they've got a plan. They know how to talk to a threat actor, the hacker. If you haven't, do I talk to a criminal? Hang on, what if I talk to them? They're going to know who I am. Bloody criminal. Yeah, no, fuck you, hacking my organization. They're going to start making mistakes. People are going to feel the pressure. Should we? Shouldn't we? That's a hard situation at that point. There's cases where people have felt physically dirty and traumatized by the experience that they are talking to criminals at this point. They're not sure what to do. The criminal, the threat actor, is pushing pressure, saying, don't tell anybody. It's like those films saying, you've got to turn up at the car park at midnight, don't tell a soul, not the police, I will know. The threat actor's doing that to try and extort money and make sure you don't bring in the incident response team. If you're there as a small and medium business, you don't have an IR team that knows this stuff. So you don't know what to do. There's confusion, there's fear, there's doubt. Not very pleasant emotions, right? The fun's worn off. You've also been working, goodness knows how many hours to try and rebuild those critical systems, to try and get the payroll out, to try and get that customer order done. But you've been working 20 hours. Hang on a minute. Well, did I see that in the logs, or was that you? No, where did I put it? Oh, damn it, I've got to go to them all again. Let me reset this. Oh no, probably shouldn't have done that. Mistakes start to happen because you're tired. As the adrenaline starts to wear off, the exhaustion comes. Your dog starts crying. So as that rolls on into the month, you might start looking at restoring systems. Well, hopefully you do. You've got an idea. You start to rebuild things. You might start shifting from panic to organized chaos to projects. You've contained a threat actor. Maybe you've decided whether to pay or not. You've done the regulatory breach notification. But maybe there's somebody out there that's still working out whether they're going to sue you at this point. There's still systems that haven't been brought up online. You're still not necessarily back up to where you need to be. So it's not stopped, but you're exhausted. Your family at home their head's been done in by the fact that you're not available for them right now. You're being ratty. You're being angry. You're tired. You're not looking after them. You've not been exercising. You've been eating too much bloody pizza. Your brain's not working. Your mind's not healthy. Your mental health is dipping. This is real. Study said the average weight gain on some of these larger incidents is 8.5 kilos. That's a lot of bloody pizza. Which seems nice at the time, I must admit. Divorces happen. Depression happens. 1 in 7 people said the trauma was so large they wanted to seek medical psychotherapy and counselling as a result of this. 1 in 5 people considered leaving their jobs as a result of ransomware. It's not nice. It's not nice. And it doesn't stop there. As you move on in the year, it's still continuing. That regulatory decision-making is still going on. Potentially the CEO is working out whether they quit. The CFO is still trying to work out what budget. Yes, programs and projects start kicking in. But as the IT team or the IR team, you're exhausted. You're still going on. You're like, can I take this anymore? And this is typically where I work in this space. I give people a lot of massages, right? There's this, okay, you're exhausted. What do we do next? And that's my personal kind of fit in life. I've got some friends that do the first bit. I love my pizza. I don't want to eat so much that I don't enjoy it anymore. So I've now moved on to this next bit. But the emotions are still there. The after effects, the trauma, the anxiety, the fatigue is still there. When will this finish? The users are still moaning at you because their systems are still not operating as they should. The customers are still complaining. You're still getting the pressure, but you're trying your very best. There's a thing about us in security and in IT, a lot of us in tech, we want to do right. We really are trying hard. We really want to try hard and look after our organization and our users. So we shoulder a lot of this responsibility. And in that comes quite a lot of pressure, personal pressure we put on ourselves, and blame, and risk. So what do we do about it? Well, there's quite a few things, actually. I want to give you hope. I've just painted this really horrible story. So please patch. Please use MFA. Do the basics. We all know that, but this is why. Anyone that works in incident response knows why it's so important. Weight loss. That's why we say patch. Okay, there's some things you can do. So first of all, if you think about the initial week, let's think about looking ahead. Let's get an incident response plan. Let's think about if a big incident happens, how do you make sure people take breaks? How do you make sure you don't just eat pizza? How do you know who's on holiday and who's not and who to call? How do you take some of that pressure out of those first few moments of knowing who knows what systems? how do you make sure you've tested your incident response plan so that first little bit's a little bit more chilled? How do you, as an incident commander or a leader or a manager, check in on other people's mental health? How do you spot when somebody else is losing their patience? What do you do in that situation? How do you just suggest they take a walk? You look out for each other, right? There's something about incident response in those situations. You come together as a team, right? And you can come out of that so much stronger. You've got to look out for each other. You've got to come together and you've got to be encouraging others to take breaks, to look out for each other, to check in with their family. You've got to create space. You can plan ahead for that, of course. You can create a rota. You can create a system where you don't have single points of failure. That's why it's important in those moments. Then in the first month as that rolls out, you've got to manage the workload. You've got to start rolling people off. You've got to realize who's been doing all the work and working hard and subbing somebody else in. Yeah, they know everything. They've been deep in all the logs. If they keel over, exhausted or stressed or leave, you're back to square one. You've got that single point of failure again, right? You've got to, and if you're a leader here, leading these teams or just somebody that cares about others in your team, create that safe space to talk about mental health. If you're seeing people acting different, and that could be extra quiet, it could be withdrawn, it could be not coming on camera as much, just notice the change and either reach out to them direct or somebody else within your team. Super important. And if you have this type of conversation about mental health across your cybersecurity team, normally, then in those moments, it's easy for that person going, yeah, I'm really struggling actually. This has been a bit too much, and actually my wife has been having a right go at me, and I don't know what to do. That conversation becomes a lot easier. But that guilt and that fear, right? You don't want to be saying that stuff if you're worried about the organization going, no, but we've got to get the systems back up. That's why we've got to be talking about things like that early. As we move through, you've got to be monitoring weight. No, okay. I mean, yeah, it changes. If somebody does look like they put on 8.5 kilos, then maybe you start making offers on the salad bar in your corporate canteen or something. But start to move towards looking at the retros, looking back at the incidents, looking about that bigger picture way of building your incident response plan to adapt to these incidents. What did you learn? What can you do better? How do you change? You go back and look at your incident response plan and go, that was a pile of crap, wasn't it? We didn't do any of that. Right, what did we do? What do we need to do differently? And you do it then. I think somebody said, yeah, we all suggest do an incident response plan. How many people actually end up pulling it off the shelf and doing it? No, you do what's in your muscles and your brain. So that's why you do tabletops and you have your plan and you practice it. This is great. You should walk on and just be like, okay. The other thing you can start looking at when you're out the pressure of the incident, at Palo Alto Networks, we've got some various different benefits, and one of them is like a helpline. You can get, correct me if I'm wrong, you get like 10 therapy sessions a year, 10 coaching sessions. There's a crisis line. That's great. We're encouraging all of our own team to use that so they can get coaching through the year or in those situations. You start thinking about whether or not you've got access to that within your own teams. You start thinking about how, we didn't put mental health in the incident response plan. Maybe it's now a good time to do it. You get a little bit more space. So, I'm going to wrap up because I want to have a bit of a discussion if we get a couple of minutes, maybe some questions. Start thinking about that. What can you do now? Well, start preparing. Start thinking ahead to that. Start wondering whether or not there was something I said today that made you think, yeah, that might save my dog's mental health if I put that in incident response plan. I'm going to go away and do it for Friday. If that's it, go back and put it in your incident response plan. Not about looking after your dog, but something similar. Practice. Work with somebody else to do an incident response tabletop if that helps you to get objectivity. If you don't have the budget, there's games, there's people that do it. You know, it's the best way of doing it when it's outside of a live incident. If you do have an incident, make sure you've not got single points of failure. Easier said than done, I know, but just make sure multiple different people know where the keys to your main systems are. And most important of all, build trust. Build a safe environment. Start having chats about what can go wrong and how to prevent it. Bring your team together somehow. Look out for people that are working remotely. Do all this stuff and you stand a chance of building your resilience within an incident and minimizing that blast radius for yourself, for your team, your users, and even society as a whole. That's why this is super important. So if you want to talk about any of this, I'd be delighted if you connect with me. Please, for those of you paranoid about QR codes, there's the actual URL underneath. Connect with me on LinkedIn. If you go onto the Unit 42 page, this is not a work presentation, but if you go onto there, there's some strategies on how to do incident response planning, there's threat intel. There's also a number there if you do really end up in the mess and you need help. Also a couple of colleagues here today that are the incident response folks. I think Jack's doing a talk later. That'll be fun. I think it's about recovery from an incident, so maybe some different themes. But yeah, thanks very much for your time. If you've got any questions or points, if anything I said resonated, love to hear. Stunned into silence or waiting for the mic. Is there one there on this?
Really good point before about restoring confidence after an incident. In your experience, how do you think it is, or what's probably the most important things that you can do, or most important steps that you can take to rebuild confidence in an organisation after a security incident?
Within an organisation, I think that's a big question. If it's to the outside world, then that's got to be around accuracy of communications. Timeliness and accuracy of communications outwards. Have a comms plan, that always helps to start with. So you're not bluffing and making stuff up. That keeps your customers and users more confident on the way through. Internally, it's internal communication plan as well. Often, what people forget when they're worrying about what to put out on the website, they forgot they've not thought about the users there, about what's happening, right? All those internal systems about payroll and bonuses or just being able to do your work, that's forgotten sometimes. So I think if going back to if you're thinking and caring about your users, your customers, they'll feel it. If you're thinking about them and not just your share price, and go back to your values of your organisation, you stand a better chance of keeping that confidence, I think. Anybody else?
Thank you. Great talk. Thank you very much. Thinking, I guess, best laid plans could all fall apart during an incident. How do you ensure that scope creep doesn't start to come in terms of people's roles and responsibilities? Because everybody wants to do the most they can, do the best they can, and pitch in. How do you ensure, or how do you try to help reduce the chances of burnout and that sort of scope creep in people and teams' responsibilities?
Great question. Actually, one of the worst things of scope creep is when you get friendly IT people or infrastructure people around there trying to do IR. Sorry if we've got infrastructure people down there. But when they start rebooting systems, playing around, having a hunt around and destroying the very stuff that you need to see, that's tricky. And then, during an incident, you get people overlapping and burnout. So a couple of things, tabletops and incident response plan. I'm going to keep saying that but it does make sense. I have seen organizations that have created cards that say, this is your role in this incident. I want you to do this, this, and this. And they just literally pull people in around the room and they're like, okay, this is your job. This is yours, by the way. At the moment, you get the note taker job. Your job is this. Here's the links that you put in. You are the decision tracker. You're the blah, 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 blah. And what if somebody was then the workload observer, manager, and mental health sort of advocate in an IR? Never seen anyone put that in an IR report, but what if that was the scope creep and burnout observer? That'd be a great thing to put. So why not? Thanks. Good question. One up there. Is another one? Put your hand up high if anyone wants to say.
Sort of a comment more than a question, but Yeah, very interesting. And this is something I've had quite a concern about for a while. I think there's a lot you could probably learn from the emergency services. In my last job, I used to do trauma risk management with the fire service. And so much, like you say, scope creep. Well, firefighters have a very rigid command structure, and everyone knows their job once they're told what they're doing. Yeah. And trauma risk management, that thing of the initial debrief, followed by an initial trauma checkup, which is a mental health sort of thing, where we look at all these sort of blame and shame and those sort of aspects, and also tell people of the things to watch out for, that they might turn to drink and all that sort of thing. And then a later follow-up just to make sure, is anyone setting off down that path, so that you can pick up those that need referral. But yeah, I do worry that in this industry that we're at risk of people ending up with PTSD because they haven't had that initial counselling when they needed it.
Yeah, and what else do those teams do? The fire service, the military, they practice, don't they? Until it becomes muscle memory that is their role. This is how they work together as a team. So when they are deployed, it's just it's taken an edge off. It's not to say that there isn't still stress and trauma, but then, like you say, there's checks and balances afterwards, just to reflect, look back, and yeah, I think I'm also a bit of a geek of neurodiversity and the mind and character types and stuff. If we were to do a disc profile or Myers-Briggs of the majority of cybersecurity, not many of us are on the people and empathy side of things. A lot of us more on the analytical side. So sometimes we forget to think people because we're so worried about the tech side. So I do find the structures we put in place, because me, personally, like a structure and a process to follow. If it's in there to think about people or to have a check-in and to be done in a particular way, then we codify empathy. And that's why I started to think about like empathy hacking, right? As a process to remember to do all these other things, that's important. So putting it in your incident response plan and practicing those check-ins and having these things as a role will maximize the chances of them happening and not being forgotten when we're worrying more about geeking away in our basement trying to get that server back up and running. But thanks, great question. Or point.
Any more questions?
Good talk, thanks. One of the things I often notice in incident response industry and things is that MSPs seem to be the ones that often get hit the most, and it's just a calamity in those situations. What do you think makes MSPs want to change that sort of perception of them being the reason or cause of a lot of IRs?
What would make them want to change?
How can they? How should they change, and why? And how can they change?
There's a couple of ways. I mean, first of all, it's got to be about competitiveness, right? So there's got to be an edge. And are you talking about managed security service providers or just service providers as a whole?
Not MSPs, just MSP.
Thank you. All right, good. Yeah, well, I think it's the nature of smaller margins and organizations like that trying to cut as many corners as possible to bring costs down, right? It's got to be. Like, that's a commercial model. It's like, okay, take on 10 customers and try and do as cheaply as possible. And then the individuals that are working in there then have to try and support those 10 customers in different environments, and accidents start to happen. So I think those organizations have got to start to think better about using AI and assuring their services from a security point of view. So, is that me? Oh, that's my own bell. Sorry.
Oh.
Hello. All right. Sorry, downloaded a new timer.
Yeah.
But that is the time.
Yes.
Look at that. It's like, yeah, so I think we as customers in cybersecurity need to be using things like AI in a way to assure and manage those. If we're in organizations buying from those providers, we need to be pushing more to them to say, we want you to be doing this minimum baseline of cybersecurity and to test. We also need to be driving to them through our procurement, please everybody, access to log sources, transparency, and being able to operate in a world where we can see if they're doing what they're saying they're doing. We've got to hold them to account. And like at Uni42, we do a whole bunch of purple teams and red teams. So yeah, put something in your contract that you're going to do a red team on them. If they don't want to do that, go with somebody else, right? Very quickly, those organizations will change and shift to become more secure because that's how they win customers. But yeah, good question. Really good question. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. I hope that was interesting and insightful. Look forward to chatting later. Thank you.